I've walked through many forests before, but there's something about certain woods in America that just feels wrong. The air gets heavier, every sound echoes a little too long, and sometimes you can swear someone's following you, even when you're alone. These places don't just hold trees and silence, they hold memories, and maybe something darker. I didn't believe the stories at first, not until I saw what happens when night falls and the forest starts whispering back. This is 5 most haunted woods in America, and trust me, once you hear these stories, you'll never look at the woods the same way again. If you enjoy exploring real haunted places and true paranormal stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's so much more darkness waiting to be uncovered. Ghost 1 Freetown, Fall River State Forest, Massachusetts. It was late October when I found myself driving down a narrow, cracked road that led deep into Freetown, Fall River State Forest in Massachusetts. The locals had warned me about this place, how strange things happen after dark, how people see lights flickering between the trees, and how the air feels different, heavier somehow. But I didn't come here to chase ghost stories. I came because I wanted to see what made this forest so feared, and maybe understand why people said it had a pulse of its own. The moment I stepped out of my car, the wind died completely. Not a single leaf moved. The silence was so deep it pressed against my ears. I remember taking my flashlight out, but even that narrow beam looked weak against the endless black between the trees. I told myself it was just a forest, just shadows and wind, but the deeper I went, the more it felt like the forest was watching me. I reached an old trail that, according to a park map, led to a pond where people claimed strange lights appeared at night. The ground was soft and cold under my shoes, and the smell of wet earth and moss filled the air. My breath made small clouds that vanished too quickly. A few hundred feet in, I noticed something, small pieces of fabric hanging from the branches. They looked like red ribbons, tied long ago and left to rot. I touched one, and it crumbled to dust. That was the first time I felt it, the feeling that I wasn't alone. Then came the whispers. Very faint at first, like someone talking behind me but too far to understand. I turned my flashlight toward the sound, but there was nothing. I called out, "Hello?" and the forest swallowed my voice. The whisper stopped. That silence again, so heavy, so unnatural, it made my skin crawl. A few minutes later, I saw a light. It was soft and bluish, floating between 2 trees ahead. For a second, I thought it was someone else with a lantern. I yelled again, but no reply. The light moved, slowly, almost teasing me. I followed it, my heart pounding. When I got close, it blinked out completely, leaving me in pure darkness. That's when I heard a scream. Not loud, but distant and hollow, like someone calling for help from underwater. I froze. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Finally, I turned and started walking fast, trying to find the trail back. But the path was gone. I kept seeing shadows darting between trees, always at the edge of my vision. At one point I saw a figure, a man standing a few yards away. He was motionless, pale, and I swear I could see right through him. When I blinked, he was gone. I don't remember how long it took to reach my car, but when I finally saw its headlights reflecting off the leaves, I felt like I'd escaped something ancient. The moment I stepped out of the woods, the wind started blowing again, gentle and normal, as if the forest had let me go. When I told the locals what I'd seen, they just nodded. One old man said quietly, "You were lucky. Some people go in there and never come out the same." That night, as I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror. For a split second, I thought I saw someone standing by the tree line, watching. But when I blinked, there was only darkness. Even now, whenever I think about that forest, I feel that same chill crawling up my spine, as if the woods remember me. 2 Pine Barrens, New Jersey. It was just past midnight when I turned off the main highway and entered the dark stretch of road leading into the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. I had heard stories my whole life, whispers about the Jersey Devil, strange lights in the woods, and people who swore they saw something they couldn't explain. I never really believed in any of it. But that night, I wanted to see the truth for myself. The deeper I drove, the more it felt like I was leaving the world behind. The trees grew thicker, bending over the narrow road like they were closing me in. My headlights were the only thing cutting through the darkness. The GPS had stopped working miles ago, and my phone showed no service. Still, I kept going. Something inside me wanted to know if the stories were real, or just local legends made to scare kids. When I finally parked and stepped out, the silence hit me first. No wind, no crickets, not even the sound of leaves moving. Just silence so deep it almost had weight. I switched on my flashlight and started walking down a small trail I'd seen on an old map. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Every step echoed like it didn't belong in that place. About 10 minutes in, I saw something hanging from a low branch, an old horseshoe nailed to a piece of wood. It looked handmade, maybe decades old. Some people said locals used to hang these to keep the Jersey Devil away. I smiled at the thought. But the smile didn't last long. Somewhere ahead, I heard a scream, sharp and sudden, echoing through the trees. My light shook in my hand as I turned in circles, trying to find where it came from. It sounded human, but distant, like it was being pulled apart by the forest itself. I called out, but only my own voice answered. Then came the smell, strong, metallic, like iron and smoke mixed together. The air turned heavy. A few steps later, I noticed something strange, hoofprints on the ground. But they weren't from any normal animal. The tracks were deep, uneven, almost clawed, like something half-human had made them. My heart started racing. I followed them for a while, even though every instinct told me not to. The trail led to a clearing. That's where I saw it, or thought I did. A tall, dark figure standing between the trees, just far enough that the light couldn't touch it. Its shape was wrong, long legs, wings folded against its back. For a few seconds it didn't move. Neither did I. Then, in a flash, it turned its head, and I saw two red eyes glowing back at me. I ran. I didn't care where. Branches tore at my jacket, roots grabbed my feet, but I didn't stop until I saw the faint reflection of my car lights through the trees. When I finally reached the car, I slammed the door and started the engine, my hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the key. As I drove away, my rearview mirror caught something moving along the tree line, something running faster than it should have been able to. I didn't look again. I just drove until the forest was gone and the stars came back into view. People still ask me if I believe in the Jersey Devil now. I just tell them this. I don't know what I saw that night, but I know that something in those woods was alive. And it knew I was there. 3 Robinson Woods, Illinois. I still remember the first time I heard about the Pine Barrens, a stretch of wilderness in New Jersey that locals say never sleeps. People talk about the Jersey Devil, a creature that's haunted these woods for centuries. I never believed those stories, at least not until I went there myself one misty October night. The road leading into the Barrens was quiet, too quiet. My phone had lost signal miles ago, and the GPS screen froze on an empty green map. I rolled down my window and could hear nothing but the crunch of my tires on gravel. Even the wind seemed to have disappeared, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I parked my car near an old fire trail and started walking. The air smelled like wet pine and decay. My flashlight beam barely cut through the thick fog curling between the trees. For a while, nothing happened, just darkness, branches creaking, and the faint sound of water dripping somewhere deep inside the woods. Then I heard it, a scream. Not human, not animal. It was something in between. The sound came from ahead, echoing through the trees like it was circling me. I froze, every muscle in my body tense. My flashlight flickered, then died. I hit it a few times, but it was no use. For a few seconds, I stood in absolute darkness. That's when I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. I whispered, "Who's there?" But my voice sounded small, swallowed by the forest. The steps came closer, breaking branches and crunching dry leaves. I turned back toward my car, but I couldn't see the path anymore. Everything looked the same, trees, fog, shadows. That's when I saw two faint red glows between the trees, like eyes reflecting light. I took a step back. The eyes blinked once, and then I heard wings. Massive, leathery wings flapping above me. The air around me shifted, and a rush of wind brushed my face. I dropped to the ground and covered my head. Whatever it was, it screeched, a high, bone-chilling sound that made every hair on my body stand up. When I finally gathered the courage to look up, the eyes were gone. The forest was silent again. I ran back the way I thought my car was and somehow stumbled onto the road. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fit the keys into the ignition. As I sped away, I caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror, a dark shape standing in the middle of the road, wings stretched wide, watching me go. I've never gone back to the Pine Barrens since that night. But sometimes, when I drive through New Jersey, I swear I can still hear that same screech echoing in the distance. And every time, I wonder if the stories were true all along. For Helltown Woods, Boston Township, Ohio. I still remember the night I entered Freetown Fall River State Forest in Massachusetts. It wasn't my first time exploring haunted places, but there was something about these woods that made me uneasy before I even got there. The locals had warned me. They said strange lights, ghostly figures, and even cult activities had been seen deep in the forest. I thought they were exaggerating, until that night proved me wrong. I arrived just before sunset. The forest was calm, too calm, and the air felt heavy, like it was holding a secret. As I walked deeper, the tall pines closed in around me, and the sounds of the outside world slowly faded away. All I could hear was the crunch of leaves under my boots and the faint hum of insects. The deeper I went, the colder it became, even though it was early summer. Around an hour in, I came across what looked like the remains of a stone circle. It wasn't on any map I'd seen. The stones were arranged too perfectly to be natural, and the ground around them was burned black in spots. I remember kneeling down to touch one of the stones. It was warm. Too warm. And there was no reason it should have been. I decided to take a few photos, but my phone camera started glitching. The screen froze, then went completely black. I tried to restart it, but nothing worked. That's when I noticed the silence. No wind, no insects, not even the sound of my own breathing for a second. Then, from somewhere in the trees, I heard what sounded like chanting. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, like several voices whispering the same thing over and over again. My body froze. I turned my flashlight toward the direction of the sound, but there was nothing, just trees and fog rolling through them. The chanting grew louder, and I could swear I heard footsteps moving in a circle around me. I shouted, "Who's there?" But my voice came out shaky. And then, everything stopped. Dead silence again. I slowly backed away, my flashlight trembling in my hand. I turned to leave, but I couldn't find the path I came from. Every direction looked the same. I started walking faster, then running, not even caring where I was going anymore. That's when I saw it, a figure standing between the trees. Tall, thin, and completely still. I could only see its outline against the fog. It didn't move, but I felt its eyes following me. I ran until my legs gave out and finally stumbled onto a dirt road. My car was parked just a few hundred feet away. When I got inside and looked at the time, it was 3:07 a.m. I had entered the forest around 8:30 the previous evening. Somehow, nearly 7 hours had passed without me realizing it. Since that night, I've read about others who've gone missing in that same forest, hikers, hunters, even police officers who reported strange lights before disappearing. I don't know what's hiding in the Freetown Fall River woods, but I know this much: whatever lives there doesn't want to be found. 5 Bickettsville Forest, Blair Witch Woods, Maryland. I still don't know why I decided to visit Bickettsville Forest in Maryland, the place people now call the Blair Witch Woods. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe stupidity, but the stories had always fascinated me. Locals talked about strange symbols on trees, people disappearing without a trace, and the feeling that something ancient lived deep within those woods. I told myself I didn't believe in any of that. I just wanted to see if the stories were true. It was late October, and the trees were almost bare. The ground was covered in a thick layer of orange leaves that made a soft crackling sound under my boots. The air was cold, but still, too still, like the forest was holding its breath. I had been walking for about half an hour when I noticed the first symbol, a stick figure tied to a tree with twine, the same design I had seen in the old Blair Witch legends. It looked fresh. Someone had made it recently. I told myself it was probably just a prank. But as I walked deeper, I started seeing more of them, hanging from branches stuck in the ground, some even arranged in small circles. I tried to ignore the growing feeling in my chest, that sense of being watched. The forest was so quiet that every time I moved, it sounded like I was disturbing something sacred. At one point, I stopped to take a sip of water, and that's when I heard it, a faint clicking sound, like two stones being tapped together. It came from the right side of the trail. I called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" but got no answer. Then it came again, closer this time, followed by a whisper. It wasn't words, just a soft breath in the dark. My hands went cold instantly.